I'm not someone who easily believes in strange things. I was raised in a practical family. My dad's an engineer. My mom's a teacher. Since I was little, I've learned to look at the world through a logical lens. Facts, rules, explanations. I chose law because I liked boundaries. There's right and wrong, clear and defined. I wasn't the smartest student, but I was persistent. I studied hard, asked the right questions, stayed in my lane. So when I landed an internship at a well-known law firm, I treated it seriously. Fully prepared to spend 3 quiet, focused months learning how the real world worked. I didn't expect that something, or someone, might already be watching me. The firm was located in a renovated mid-century building downtown. Not too big. About 8 full-time lawyers and a handful of interns like me. I got assigned to Marcus's team. He was in his early 40s, very calm and composed, polite but distant. The kind of person you can respect without really knowing. His mind was sharp, his workspace spotless, his voice always level. We worked on the 3rd floor, where 5 offices were connected by a long hallway. I was in room 302, right next to his. At the end of the hall was a door labelled room 304. It was always locked, no nameplate, no traffic. The lock was rusted over and dust collected around the frame. I once asked a colleague, "What's in that room?" She just shrugged. Storage, I think. I've never seen it open. I didn't think much of it. Not until Marcus handed me a file one afternoon. It wasn't related to any active case. Some of the names inside were blacked out. Sloppy redactions. I asked Marcus about it. He just said, "Consider it a research assignment. Don't ask too many questions." I took the folder back to my desk, and at the last page, I spotted a faint, almost invisible stamp. Internal only. Archived at room 304. Do not release. A chill went through me. Why was I given something that wasn't supposed to be shared? That evening, I stayed behind longer than usual. The 3rd floor was nearly empty. I walked down the hallway, stood in front of room 304, and pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Until I heard it. A page turning, not loud, just one soft flick of paper. I stepped back, heart racing. Then I heard footsteps approaching. I turned. It was Marcus. He looked at me, then at the door behind me, expression unreadable. "It's late," he said calmly. "You should head home." That night, I couldn't sleep. I started digging online. What I found made me even more uneasy. Apparently, the firm was involved in a quiet lawsuit back in 2011. Something about the disappearance of a female intern. Her name was Lena. There wasn't much info. No news coverage beyond the first few weeks. Only one archived post mentioned she was last seen on the 3rd floor. No mention of a specific room. But I had a feeling. You can guess which one. The next morning, I arrived early, not to work, but to verify what I'd read. I opened the 2011 file folder again. Lena's name didn't appear in the intern records. Not in the staff list. Not in any internal documents. It was like she never existed. But one thing couldn't be deleted. In the stairwell leading up to the 3rd floor, there was an old framed group photo, taken for the firm's 30th anniversary. I stared at it closely. In the far right corner, a young woman stood beside Marcus. Her face wasn't familiar. She didn't appear on any official records, but she had eyes that looked a lot like mine. Later that day, Marcus called me into his office. He handed me a new folder, this time for a current case. But just before I left, he added, "Oh, one more thing. You should move your desk to room 304. It's available now." I froze. Room 304 is open? He gave a faint smile. Yeah. Someone needs to clean it out. Organize old files. You seem like the right person. I didn't know what to say. That night I didn't go straight home. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at room 304. The light inside was on, and this time, the door was slightly ajar. I took one step up, then stopped. I didn't know why, but for a split second I heard it again. A chair moving, a page turning, just like the night before. I've continued working at the farm. It's been over a year now. I never moved into room 304. Marcus never brought it up again. But one day, while searching the archives, I stumbled across a forgotten PDF. It wasn't password protected. Inside was a scanned copy of the 2011 intern roster. At the bottom, one name had been crossed out. The last line read, "No further contact after internship. Reason for departure, unknown." No photo, no additional notes, just a dead email address. Every now and then, as I pass room 304, still locked, still silent, I feel someone is inside. Not angry, not threatening, just present, like someone who's been there all along and never truly left. I have a golden retriever named Leo. He's gentle, smart, loyal in that quiet old soul kind of way. Every morning and evening, I take him for walks in a small neighborhood park. It's not fancy. Just a few old trees, a worn-down stone path, a shallow lake with still water. On weekends, the park gets busy, but that day, it was a quiet Monday morning. No crowds, just silence, and the kind of stillness that feels a little too perfect. Leo walked ahead of me, his ears alert, nose close to the ground. I followed slowly, hands in my jacket pockets, listening to the soft crunch of leaves beneath our feet. There was a smell in the air, damp dirt, morning dew, and a hint of something sweet, like overripe flowers. We looped the lake, as usual, until Leo suddenly veered left, toward a narrow path behind a row of bushes. I rarely take that route. It's more overgrown, more closed off, but today, he insisted. As we walked in, the trees grew denser. The sunlight dimmed, and the temperature dropped, subtly but noticeably. Leo stopped. His body stiffened, tail down, ears low. He stared toward a patch of bushes to our right. I followed his gaze, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement. But it was just leaves, or wind, I think. Then I noticed something. A plastic bag half buried in the dirt, black, wet, heavy-looking. Leo let out a low growl, not aggressive, but nervous. Suddenly, I felt it too. That creeping sensation, like being watched. I turned around. Nothing. Just the path behind us. Empty, still. A cold knot formed in my chest. I whispered, "Let's go." Leo didn't hesitate. We walked fast. Not quite running, but not strolling either. Back to the lake. Back to the sun. Back to safety. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't report anything. I didn't want to explain what I didn't understand. Years passed. I moved to a new place. Leo got older. I got married. Life moved on. But I never forgot that day. One Sunday, my wife suggested a walk in the park. I searched for places nearby, and that old park showed up. The name made my stomach twist a little. But I said nothing. We went. It looked almost the same. Same trees, same lake, just a newer bench, a cleaner path. Leo walked slower now, his steps careful but steady. My daughter skipped ahead, bouncing a red ball. As we passed the lake, I saw it again. That narrow path behind the bushes, still there, Still dark. Still waiting. I stood for a moment at the entrance. Leo stopped beside me, but he didn't move forward. His eyes were fixed on the trees. Like he remembered too. I stepped in. The air changed. The smell came back. Wet bark. Mildew. Something sharp underneath. No birds, no breeze. Just the sound of my breathing. I walked deeper in. Past the twisted tree. Past the spot where that plastic bag once lay. There was nothing there. And yet, everything felt wrong. That feeling of pressure in the air, like something unseen was just inches away, watching, waiting. I turned around and walked back to the clearing. Leo was still waiting, staring, silent. That night, my daughter was playing near the couch. I noticed something green on her sleeve, like algae or moss. I asked her, "Where'd you get this?" She said, "The boy gave it to me." I paused. "What boy?" She pointed out the window. "The one by the bush." He waved at me. I went to the window, looked out toward the park. There was no one, just trees and leaves, and that same path leading into shadows. Somewhere in the stillness, I thought I heard something. A soft rustle, a quiet breath, or maybe just the sound of someone turning a page. Cameras in the dark. My name is Alex. I'm 29 years old, and I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the 10th floor of a mid-rise building about half an hour from downtown. I'm a freelance software engineer, which means most of my life happens indoors. Headphones on, screen glowing, coffee cooling, code running. I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in patterns. Logic, data, structure. That's why I always trusted the cameras I installed around my apartment. 4 of them. 1 in the living room, 1 in the hallway, 1 by the front door, and 1 pointing at my small balcony. Just in case. For nearly 3 years, those cameras never showed anything strange, until last month. It started with a notification. 2:13 a.m. Motion detected in the living room. I was asleep. When I woke up and checked my phone, the clip was there. A short 6-second recording. Nothing moved. Not the curtains, not the fan, not even the light on the router. Just stillness. And yet, the camera had triggered. I thought maybe it was a glitch, maybe a fly passed by. I shrugged it off. But the next night, same time, 2:13 a.m., another notification, another recording. This time I sat up in bed and watched it closely. The frame was nearly identical to the night before. No motion, no change in lighting, no sound. But right at the 5-second mark, I noticed something. A shadow, faint, slow, passed along the far wall. It was subtle. I had to rewind and adjust the brightness to really see it, but it was there. A soft movement, like someone walking silently, just beyond the edge of the camera's view. I got up and checked the room. Nothing. I checked the balcony, locked from the inside, checked the hallway, empty. I told myself it was probably headlights from outside. Or maybe I moved in my sleep, and the system picked up the sound. Something logical. But that night, I didn't sleep well. The next evening, I stayed up. Not just stayed up. I sat in front of the screen, eyes fixed on the camera feed. 1:30 a.m., nothing. 2 a.m., still nothing. At 2:13 a.m., the hallway light flickered. Not off, just a flicker, like a short pulse. And then on the feed, I saw it. The living room camera picked up motion again. I quickly opened the clip. The shadow was back. This time, it moved slower, more deliberate, and I heard something very faint, a sound, like fabric brushing against the wall or fingers tapping on wood. I replayed the clip again and again. Then I opened the hallway camera. There was nothing in the feed. But the light in the hallway turned off by itself at 2:14 a.m. and came back on at 2:15. That switch is manual. I checked the wiring the next day. I checked the breaker. Everything was fine. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But I started locking my bedroom door at night. A few days passed with nothing unusual. Then, one night, I got a motion alert at 2:12 a.m., not 2:13, earlier. And this time the clip didn't show the living room. It was the front door camera. The footage showed the door handle, slowly turning, not opening, just turning back and forth like someone was gently testing it. Then, it stopped, and a whisper. I swear to you, a whisper. So quiet I couldn't make out the words. I rewound, played it back, again and again. The same sound. That was when I started sleeping at my friend's place. I didn't feel safe, even with the locks, even with the cameras. A week later, I came back during the day to grab some things. I turned off all the cameras, except one, the balcony cam. I left it on out of habit. That night, around 2:30 a.m., I got a notification. The balcony door was opening. I checked the clip. The door, which I had locked, opened slightly, then closed. No wind, no movement in the trees, no animals, just the door. I told myself it must have been the seal. Maybe it didn't close properly. I kept telling myself things like that because it was easier. Because the alternative was something I couldn't explain. I've since moved out of that apartment. I never went back to get the rest of my things. But I still have the video clips saved. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I re-watch them. I still try to convince myself it was all just a series of strange coincidences. Just bugs in the system. Just wind. Just shadows. I still try to believe that. But part of me knows whatever was there that night, it saw me. And maybe it still does. My name is Lucas. I'm 37 years old, living in a small town in northern Minnesota, where there are more lakes than there are people in my entire neighborhood. I'm an introvert, a quiet person. Most of my time is spent working at a machine repair shop and on weekends. I go fishing. Not everyone gets it. Sitting still for hours, surrounded by nothing but nature, sometimes in complete silence, just to wait for a tiny tug at the end of the line. But for me, it's the perfect escape. A way to get away from the noise and chaos of the modern world. Last summer, I invited my best friend, Jack, to go night fishing at Birchwood Lake. The place is pretty remote. Takes almost 2 hours to drive from town. Then, a narrow forest trail leads you to the dock. Jack is the only person I trust to spend an entire night out there. No cell signal, no city lights, just black water, and the sound of insects. We left on a Friday afternoon. The weather was perfect. Clear skies, a light breeze, and the air smelled like dry grass mixed with pine resin. I always remember that scent when I think back to that night. While loading the truck, rods, flashlights, jackets, bait, a cooler of beer and sandwiches, Jack whistled a tune and said, "Let's hope there's nothing weird swimming under the boat tonight." I laughed. "If there is, you're the bait." We drove until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and orange. When we reached the dock, there was no one else. Absolute silence. No wind, no engines, just our footsteps on the wooden planks and the soft thud of the boat against the pier. We paddled to the center of the lake. Jack switched on his headlamp. I checked the hooks and baited the lines. The water was perfectly still, like glass, mirroring the sky as it faded into twilight. The breeze carried a sudden chill, and I shivered, even though it was still July. There was a strange calm in the air, a peacefulness that felt almost too perfect. I didn't know it then, but that would be the last moment I felt safe that night. Around 11 p.m., we had caught a few small bass, enough to call the trip worth it. Jack cracked open a beer, I unwrapped a sandwich, and we sat there, sharing a simple late-night meal in the middle of the lake. The wind had stopped. The lake's surface was like a mirror, reflecting stars and treetops. But then I noticed the reflections were gone. I leaned closer. The water was still black, but instead of sky and stars, all I saw was a deep, endless darkness. I blinked, turned to Jack to say something, and the boat shifted, just slightly. We both turned toward the back of the boat. A shape. It rose up, then vanished beneath the surface. I held my breath. So did Jack. No splash, no ripple, just the pounding of my heart in my ears. Jack pointed his headlamp toward the water. Nothing. But the anchor line was pulled tight, too tight. Then, a sudden tug, hard. The boat tilted. We jumped up. I grabbed my knife and cut the rope in a panic. My hands were shaking. My heart thudded against my chest. I turned on the backup flashlight clipped to my belt and swept the beam over the water. Nothing. No jacket. No hand. No one. Jack huddled next to me, pale as a ghost. I could feel his breath, sharp and fast, and see his body trembling with every tiny ripple against the boat. "We need to get out of here," Jack whispered. "Something's under us. I swear." It pulled the anchor. I nodded, but the boat didn't move. Even with the anchor cut, it felt like we were being held, not by force, but by something unseen, something watching, something waiting. We grabbed the spare paddles, tried to row. Our arms were weak with fear. The boat wobbled with every stroke, and still, the lake remained black. Now and then, we heard faint clicks, like fingernails tapping the side of the hull. A foul smell crept in, wet wood, rotting moss, and rust. I swallowed hard. Jack was muttering under his breath over and over, "There's nothing there. Nothing there." After what felt like forever, we made it to the shoreline. The truck's headlights were still glowing in the distance, like a lifeline. But as we stepped onto the dock, Jack stopped. He looked toward the trees. I asked, "What is it?" He whispered, "Do you hear that, Goy?" I listened. A voice, soft where distant, calling. It was a woman's voice, whispering my name from the woods. "Lucas." My blood turned cold, my heart froze, not because of the voice itself, but because of who it sounded like. It was my mother's voice, and she's been dead for 4 years. I grabbed Jack's arm, and we ran. The car door slammed shut, the engine roared, and we drove away, without a word, without a glance back. That was the last time I ever went night fishing.